We have another guest today, a longtime listener. Her name is Addison, and she is in Rome, I believe, and she's going to tell us some things that she's been doing in Rome. Addison, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm actually currently at the airport in the United States, which is so nice. So I just figured I'd tell y'all a little about my day. It was kind of interesting.
What happened?
Okay, well, so like I said, I'm supposed to be coming home today, but so I woke up and I got my stuff together and I packed and got ready to leave. And I told myself, okay, Addison, you need to be back by about 2:30 so you can grab your stuff and head to the airport. You feel me? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So I got my things together and I left. And I took a right and I headed out. So I walked a little ways. And as I started to look around, everything looked different. I wasn't exactly sure where I was at. So there were some little shops and things that were near me, and I went into this little bakery, deli type of place for a little while, and no one really acknowledged me or anything, but that's okay. I mean, that didn't bother me. So I started heading for the door, and a man who worked in the little bakery place that I was in, he started to stop me before I actually left, and he asked me if everything was okay. And I just kind of stared at him. I was kind of in shock. Like, oh my gosh, you can understand me. I can understand you. So
Yeah, I bet that was a relief.
Yeah, it was. I told him I was okay. But I didn't know where I needed to go or how to get back to my hotel. So he told me if I waited a little while longer, until he got off work, he would be able to take me back to my hotel and help me. So I was like, well, okay, I'm kind of in a hurry, but I can wait. If he can help me, then I can wait. So I sat back down, and about 20 minutes later, he came out. He looked completely different. He changed his clothes, he fixed his hair, and I told him we needed to go now if I was going to be back in what I thought was in time. So we left. As we were walking, we kind of got to know each other and stuff. He was really nice and friendly. He told me about how he lived there all his life and how he kind of grew up in this area. And so I told him what the name of my hotel was, and he said that we could get there. It's just going to take a little while. So we were walking, and we had to take the subway. I'm not exactly sure how I got myself to where I found him, because it seemed like it was a lot longer way than I thought it was. So eventually, we got back to my hotel, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like 4 o'clock. I needed to be back at my hotel at like 2:30. So I started freaking out, and he just kind of stood there. He didn't really know what to do. So he said if I go and grab my bags really quick, he'll help me get back to the airport as well. So I ran and grabbed my thing, and I checked out of the hotel. And before I knew it, we were at the airport. I was still kind of in a hurry. I thought I'd missed my flight. So I went up to the desk. It turns out my flight had actually been delayed, which was like such a sigh of relief. So I went back and told this man that helped me all day long the good news that I had just received. And he waited with me until I needed to actually get on the plane. So he was just really nice and friendly and so helpful to me throughout my day. And my day just seemed like it was so bad because all of these bad things kept happening to me. But then he just came along and helped me as best he could, which was so nice.
Yeah. Well, it was a very interesting story and great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening about my day.
Hey folks, thanks for sticking with us. We have another fantastic, interesting story today from a retired veteran named John Wilson, I believe. John, thank you so much for your service, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, so what story do you have for us?
Well, I'm going to tell you about the time I was coming back from Afghanistan back in the day, and I don't know what happened, but I ended up in the woods somewhere up north.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty hectic. all I can remember beforehand was that I was on my way home, and I was in a Jeep or a truck or something, and then
Were you driving yourself home, or were you being transported home?
I was being transported.
Okay.
And yeah, so I woke up in the woods, and I assumed it was somewhere up north because, well, that's where we were at the time. We were heading towards my home in Montana. So basically, about a month and a half, 2 months go by. I've made a camp, and you know, the whole shebang.
And nobody knows you're out there.
Nobody, not as far as I can tell. And so, thanks to my military training, I could do all this without a lot of hassle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they teach you that stuff in the Army.
Yeah.
So it's really just a regular day, and I figured I should make some clay pots, and so I'd start heading down the hill to the local stream, and there's a spot where you can get clay from to you know, make odds and ends and stuff. So I go down there and I gather some clay, and I head back up to my camp, and I shape up the pots I'm wanting to make, and I set them in the fire so they'll get hard, and sort of use the fire as a kiln. And so by that time of the day, I'm pretty hungry, so I head back down to the stream again, and I have this fishing trap, and I grab some fish, and I head back up to camp and cook them up. So the day ends and my pots are finished. So the next morning, I want to have a good morning meal, so I grab my pots which are finished, and so I grab them and I head back down to the stream to get some water, make some tea or whatever, grab some more fish for breakfast. So I get down there and I get the water, but when I head over to where the fish trap was, I notice it's gone. I'm really frustrated, like, who could have done this? These were really sturdy. And so I get back out of the water and I notice bear tracks.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, and I was really scared about that. So I grab my pot full of water and I head back up to camp, and I guess I skip a meal that day. The next day I build the fish trap and start catching more fish, and I figured I should make some kind of a big game trap for this bear that's around. A good friend of mine, Bear Grylls, actually showed me
You're friends with Bear Grylls?
Well, yeah, of course I am.
Wow.
Yeah, so a long time ago, he taught me how to make this really cool trap for big game in the woods. And it basically consists of a long branch with 4 sharp stakes at the end. And you lodge them in between 2 trees, and then you hook it up to a wire, and when an animal comes across, it slings it out and hits them, and hopefully kills them. So over the next few days, I get that set up, and I'm getting fish, and everything's all right. And so the day that I have the trap finished, it's set up in between my camp and the stream, so it's like midway down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
So after I get that set up, I want to go back down and get some fish for the day, you know. And again, the fish trap is broken, and it's gone, and it's washed away. All of a sudden, I start hearing like growling and moaning, which sounded like the bear from up the hill. And so I grab a huge rock, and it was the bear, then got hit with the trap that I set up. And so I look around, and there's blood everywhere. I follow the blood trail, and it leads up the hill towards my camp. So I'm really nervous, and I'm angry, and I grab my rock, and I run up, and I eventually find the bear limping along, moaning and angry, obviously. And I run up behind it, and I jump in front of it and clock it in the head with the rock.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long, was it after that before you managed to make it back to civilization? Because obviously you're here with us now.
Well, yeah, after that, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, a rescue team came and got me. Thank the Lord they found me.
Well, John, it was a real pleasure to have you on the show. And again, I thank you what you've done for your country, and I'm glad to have you back.
Well,
back
thank you,
to
sir.
safety.
Thank you for your time.
Hey, folks, thanks for staying tuned in this week. We have another very, very interesting story told by a real-life Australian named Grant Popham. Grant, I'm glad to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
So tell us what happened to you.
Well, I, for about 5 years, worked as a constable in a town in Western Australia.
Okay,
Tiny little
let me
town.
stop you right there. Constable is just a British word for police officer.
It's like a police officer, but you don't get a gun.
Okay, all right, continue.
And it was a pretty tiny town, only about 160 people there. I maybe got calls once a week, nothing really big.
Mm-hmm.
But one day, someone called me and they sounded pretty nervous. Like, I don't even really know. They were just stuttering, stammering. I went down to where they were on the bluff and went and talked to them, and they were really scared. They went and they led me down to that cave and smelled horrendous. Like, you can't describe how bad that smelled. I went down there and went inside, and it looked kind of just like a bloody, rotting, decaying mess. Like, couldn't really tell very much of what it was.
Wow, okay.
So I went in there and took a couple pictures, and then when I went back up, apparently that person, whoever he was, went and he started telling people about what was down there. He may have told some people that it was like a dead body too. So I got up there
Wow.
and people were like, "Who is it? Who is it?" They're like, "The dead body down there." I was like, "Oh, the dead body?" I just assumed I hadn't really seen the dead body down there, and he had, and so I went there and taped it off. Then I had to call in a forensic biologist. We went down there, both me and the forensic person, and got there, and took us maybe about 20 minutes searching everything up and down that cave. We still couldn't find anything. Still, people were still asking. They didn't believe us when we said there was no one in there. They thought it was some sort of like conspiracy, lack of
Yeah.
a better word.
People really do jump to assumptions pretty quickly.
Yeah. So what we did was, the dead animal that was in there was a dead cuttlefish. Must have gotten tossed up there in the waves. We scheduled a town hall meeting for talking about it. Essentially, during the town hall meeting, the forensic person went up and they essentially posed as a marine biologist, and they just went and like exposed essentially what it was, and everyone was just like completely shocked. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, that's I don't think I've ever heard a story like that at all, or heard something like that. A conspiracy theorist about a fish. Well, Grant, it was great to have you on the show, and that was a real pleasure to see you, and keep listening.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, we're gonna close up this session with a story of my own about a friend of mine named Jason. Really great guy. He was a United States Marshal and as well as a park ranger. And this is how he died. It was just a normal day. He was getting ready for work. He left the house. His wife was still in bed. On his way to work, he received a call from the office. The sheriff's office had notified them that there was an escaped convict in their area. As it turned out, that escaped convict was a criminal that Jason put into prison 5 years earlier. He back when he was United States Marshal, and he realized this when he received the call and was given the description. It was normal protocol there for an escaped convict. I mean, Jason had never experienced anything like that before. You know, there have been lost hikers and families, but, you know, never somebody who was actually hiding, you know, never a prisoner. He was just patrolling. He was doing his job. He was serving his country, doing his job. He was patrolling the woods, just looking out for him when he saw a man sitting underneath a tree. He realized who it was almost immediately due to the prison jumpsuit and that. Jason tried to talk to him, tried to bring him in. He did his best. Gave him every option he could, and then without a thought, the prisoner, Boyd Crowder, shot Jason 3 times and killed him right there on site. It was about a week before they caught Boyd. He managed to stay in the woods as long as he could, and eventually they figured out that he was sneaking out in the middle of the night and rummaging through cars and trash bins, and that's how they caught him. They set up a fake car, and when Boyd went in, there was an officer there waiting, and he nobody believed Boyd. He said that he had to kill Jason. There's no choice for self-defense. Nobody believed him. Not the judge, not the jury, not even a state-appointed lawyer. Boyd was sentenced to death October the 17th, 3 months after his trial, by means of lethal injection. And both Jason's wife and Boyd's wife and I were present. It was a sad day. Jason would not have wanted him to die, even though he killed him. Jason was a very loving man, and he would have never wanted somebody to go through that. But it's what happened, and it was over. 8 minutes, and it was over. That's the day that I got to know Boyd's wife. Jason's wife and I, and Boyd's wife, began to talk after that tragic event, and grew close to one another and became friends. Actually, it was a sad thing that Boyd had to die, but because of that, a new relationship was born, and all three of us have something tying us together that nobody else has, and I think that's a beautiful thing, even though it was out of tragedy. And I just wanted to share that with you guys tonight. And just remember to say that you love your family before you go to bed or before you leave for work, and that anything can happen in a moment's notice.